Well, with the events of yesterday, we wanted to get a chance to talk with our medical expert about guns. And we're talking about guns as a health problem, the effect that gun violence can have on our community from a medical perspective. And there have been studies done on this, and Dr. Kohli is with us to talk about it. You always end up getting people talking about this as a political issue, but from a health standpoint, it's obviously something that the medical community talks about it at length.
We talk about it all the time, and in fact, in 2016, the American Heart Association put their flag down and called this a public health crisis. And I'm going to use the word epidemic because having lived through COVID-19, we're all now familiar with what a pandemic or epidemic is, a rapidly spreading disease. And if you think about what's happening with gun violence, we're having a phenomenon called social contagion, where you see somebody do it, and then you get inspired to do it, and that's called social contagion. And this particular generation of kids that's growing up now has seen this type of gun violence in their course of their entire lives. So it's not just the psychological and the mental health effects, but I'm worried about the physical effects, the academic effects, the social development, so on and so forth.
They don't know a world without school shootings. They don't know a world without practicing lockdowns and things like that. But so often we hear about this was a mental health issue that led to this. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that's a huge cop-out. So of course, if you think about the pie of gun violence, there is a piece of it that belongs to mental health problems, and solving the mental health crisis is certainly going to help. But other countries that have a large proportion of mental health problems do not have this type of gun violence. And if you look over the data just in the last 3 years in the United States, you'll see every year for the last 3 years, we've had over 600 mass shootings, which means 4 or more people dead. So that averages to almost 2 a day.
Yeah.
Is the average age also falling? The average age of the people who are shooting and the people who are being shot?
You know, I think that has not been systematically looked at because part of that is the access issue, what is the age of the people that are getting access? But we are seeing that the #1 preventable cause of death in children is injuries, largely due to firearm injuries. Now, some of these are accidental, meaning the gun is at home and it's not locked up and the kid plays with it and they don't realize and it goes off, but a large proportion of these are related to schools.
And that is, and we're going to have a story later on regarding the case in Michigan where the parents are being held responsible. It is one of those things, the access things. What else do you think? Is there any kind of hope or way to slow this down?
Well, you know, we talk about, and as physicians, we like to think about this just like we think about hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol, as a preventable public health problem. And the biggest piece of that, there's 2 pieces of it: screening, education, and implementation of change. So what we really need to start doing is sort of screening on a more systemic basis as to where these problems are. Now that falls on healthcare institutions, but also on us as individuals. You know, looking to our friends and family members, talking to them about gun violence, normalizing conversation about if you have a gun at home, make sure it's locked up, make sure that you keep the safety on, make sure it's not loaded, those types of conversations.
Or talking to your kids too. I mean, you have to talk to your kids when you go to somebody else's house about that.
That's exactly right, because some of these actually happen in other people's homes as well, when your child is visiting somebody else's house. And so you have to be mindful, or somebody else comes to your house. So I think awareness and education is the biggest piece of it. That's preventable. And I would say that the next level of it is really thinking about how we can change access and change what people are doing. The social contagion problem, I think, is expanding, and we see a lot of violence on television. We see it in schools. We see it in video games. These are all things we have to address to really change this trajectory.
Yeah, I really worry about it in a variety of ways, from the desensitization to the psychological burden it puts on people. As someone who's had to come and sit in this chair and now talk about multiple mass shootings through my career, I can tell you the psychological debt that I pay is very difficult to deal with. And yet you think of how you felt after Columbine or Sandy Hook or the King Soopers shooting, and you think, you know, it's just, how do we go forward? Because for me, it becomes very difficult to go forward and to come to work and to think, I'm going to talk about this again, and I'm going to talk about it again. And I don't want to talk about it again.
And I worry, Tom, that there's some degree of desensitization. Every time this happens, we start to become a little numb. We internalize those emotions, and they don't just disappear. They manifest in physiologic ways with elevated blood pressure, you know, with high cholesterol, high sugar. And so
feeling crappy.
Yeah.
And feeling really bad.
Carrying that baggage with you. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not something we can unload easily.
Well, we had another one. You know, we just went through another event. You know, not a mass shooting, but an event. It's entirely personal to everyone. You know how they process it. But just to talk to you about the medical side of it, which includes the psychological side of it, it's been a tough time. It's been a tough time. Always good to see you, though. Thank you for coming in, Dr. Kohli joining us. We'll be right back.